So that's the main thing. You want to make certain that you've got that one. Now this one is, you notice this is blue here. This is a 5 PSI, so when I'm using a second stage regulator, it's a 2 PSI system. I want to measure 3 PSI maximum. I'll use this because I know the blue relates to the blue regulator that I'm using. Just something to go with. Okay, so here it is. Here's your gauge. Here's an ME60. All right, 30 inches worth of water column. There's your set screw there that you can make your adjustment to. So you can actually screw the front bezel off, make your adjustment with the screw, and pop your bezel back on. Okay, now we're going to get into 54. 54 says anything from the outlet side of that second stage regulator going into the house, that is 54 code. Okay, now, do you have any vapor meters, actual like gas meters that you use? Okay, if you ever go to a house and it has a gas meter, because that's the outlet side of the second stage regulator, this gas meter over here is 54. It's not 58, it's 54. So anything from the outlet side of the second stage regulator is 54. Everything back the other way is 58. Okay? So here, we're doing the same thing. We're going to go back. We're going to pressurize the system for about 3 to 5 seconds. Instead of using a gauge, all we're going to do is we're going to put the water manometer on there, just like that. And here you can see it push down here and push up here. This is actually going to be about 9.5 inches worth of water column when you add those two together. So there's your reading. So all you have to do is disconnect that, put your gauge on there, verify it reads the exact same thing, make your adjustments. You've got it calibrated for the month. Now, when testing, all right, now for a leak check, okay, you have to do a leak check at 9 inches worth of water column, plus or minus a half. So whatever it comes in, it's coming in at 10 PSI. Your regulator's dropping it down somewhere in between there. It's usually going to be about 11 to 12 inches worth of water column. So you have to drop it down to 9 inches worth of water column, plus or minus a half. Okay, record that, hold it for the 5 minutes, and if you're okay, you're good to go. If you're still getting a leak from there, then that means somewhere inside that house, the system's leaking, which means, what are you going to have to do? Lock the system out at the tank, okay? Because you don't do repairs on the inside of the house. If it's leaking from the inside of the house, and I don't care if it's a little old lady or somebody that's got 12 kids or whatever, you cannot leave that system intact.
Are we still allowed to go in and maybe try to find it for them?
You can.
And if it's something easy to pull apart and dope back up and put together?
That's entirely up to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
We tried to do
We
that.
try if we can help somebody out, but if we can't, we're not gonna.
If we gotta tear half the basin
No.
apart, we don't, but if it's just a quick elbow and we can
Yeah.
fix it.
If you can do that.
Yeah.
No. I'm just leaving it to the leak check situation here, so, all right?
Sorry.
No, no problem. It's good questions. You know, toss it out now because we get it all clean and clear and get it from there. So, same information. You've recorded everything, you've repressurized the system, and you want to go back and do a spray check. Make certain that those things are holding properly and cap them. All right, so here we go, flow and lockup. All right, there's always misunderstanding as far as what a flow and what a lockup is. All right, so you have to do a flow and lockup anytime that a regulator has been replaced. Anytime that the new system has been put in service for the first time. Okay, so if you take a customer over from AmeriGas, you have to do a leak check, flow and lockup test. If you put a new regulator on there, a leak check and a flow and lockup test. A new appliance in that house, it has to have a flow and lockup test to make certain it has enough flow pressure to include this new appliance that's been put into the house. Okay, so let's go back to our little drawing board here. And I'm going to write a couple things in here. And when you're doing a flow and lockup test, here's the one thing I always recommend. You've got 2 different gauges there. You're already doing a test at the first stage or your second stage regulator. Hook both of them up at the same time. The reason why our industry is very bad about not testing the first stage regulator if you're testing from the second. So here's what you're going to have, and we're going to set this at 11, and that's going to be 10.3, and that's going to be 12.9. Yes, I know. Okay. So here's a lockup and flow issue. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to connect both of your regulators to your gauges. Okay, so your initial pressure, you know you're going to get 10 psi from here. Okay, and you know you're going to get, once you do your leak check first, you're going to get 9 inches worth of water column, plus or minus a half, and that's going to get it. So your next thing to do is you make one trip, just like this. From there, and 9 inches worth of water column, you go inside the house and you go to the furnace. You record all the information for the furnace off the data plate. Okay? You've got all that on there. Next thing that you do, you turn that furnace on. So you let it start heating up, making certain it's running 100%. You walk to your next closest appliance, water heater. You record all your information off your data plate for your water heater. Again, you set it, turn up the thermostat so it'll start firing up so you can check it from there. Last thing that you get to is the stove inside the house. You go to the stove and record the data plate information from there. And the two things that you're going to record, because you can see them by sight, is you can see if there's a manual shutoff within 6 feet. And for these two appliances right here, you know that they are running by thermostat. So they must have a manual shutoff within 1 foot right there. Must be a 4-inch sediment trap. So those two things you can visualize. So again, you're going step by step by step, and you're saving time. Data plate, data plate, data plate. You've turned on all the appliances. So now you have 100% burn for everything in that house. You come right back out, and then you're going to have your flow, and if you're going to set your flow to 11 inches worth of water column, you're going to come back and take the bonnet off here, and if this is not reading 11 inches, you want to adjust this to read 11 inches to supply all appliances at 100% burn. Once you have 11 inches, you make one more trip, shut off all the appliances, and when you shut the appliances off, you come back out, and that is your lockup pressure. That's the backflow after you shut all these appliances off. That is going to be your flow and your lockup. And when you do record that, you're going to come back and you're going to find out that your lockup pressure is going to be greater than your flow pressure in your first stage regulator also. Now, if it's been an older house, you know, if that regulator's been there 20, 25 years, you'll be surprised how many of these regulators here will fail for lockup pressure. So again, you want to double check, you want to keep your gauge on both of these, okay, for your intermediate and your low pressure side, and you're saving all the steps. You're just making one trip in, appliance, 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 turning on everything as you come along. You go right back out, just can be a range anywhere in between. Most of the times it's going to be somewhere about 12, 12.1 to, in normal situations, it'll be 12.9, 13.1, okay? That's usually good operating, okay? But if it exceeds 30% of the flow, okay, or 14 inches worth of water column, the best thing is if you set it for 11 inches worth of water column for your 100% demand, 14 inches is more than 30%. So if it hits 14 inches worth of water column for a lockup, that regulator's bad and it comes out, okay? Same thing for this one. You've got 10 pounds to start out with, okay? If you have a lockup pressure at 13, it's out of there, okay? So that way you'll know. But there's always going to be, you know, different graduations as far as what that lockup pressure is. Make certain that you don't just record 12 or 13. Record whatever you see, 12 and a half, 12.6, or whatever you see. Because that way they can say, well, you're not pencil whipping it, okay, first of all, and you're doing an accurate test. So, questions from there? All right, so So lockup pressure, okay, is always gonna be the backflow coming back from the appliance. Everybody always considered lockup was gonna be what the pressure hits that regulator. That's not it. It's the backflow. You don't want that stuff going back up to the system. So lockup pressure, you're gonna test at 11 inches, complete burn. And once you shut it off and it locks up, if it exceeds more than 30% of the flow, or 14 inches worth of water column, that regulator has to be replaced. Okay, so the differences are, okay, a leak check, lockup flow, both 54 and 58 agree with that. The difference is in pressure test, okay? If you're doing a pressure test according to 58, you only have to do it at operating pressure, okay, which is 10 psi, and you can do it with propane. If you're doing pressure test on inside piping, it must be at 1.5 times pressure, no more than 3 psi, and it has to be done with an inert gas. So you just take your bicycle pump and pump it up. If you go to new construction, okay, and they've already got the lines run, most of the times you're going to see the stub outlet coming out, and you're going to see a little gauge on it. By international building codes, those builders have to pressure test the system for 24 hours before anybody can sign off on it. So you could sit there and just look at that and say, all right, I'm gonna sit here and wait 10 minutes, okay? It's already recorded for me, you don't have to do anything special. You can go ahead and hook everything up. All right, so, no, I'm not gonna do that one. Okay, so just some of the forms here, different types of forms. So here, you're gonna have your starting pressure and ending pressure, starting time and ending time. And always make certain if you're using paper forms, circle which one that you're using from there. Again, start pressure, end pressure, starting time and ending time from here. Again, your drop down pressure for a first stage is gonna be 3 to 5 psi. The difference in code, 58 says it's operating pressure, 54 says it's 1.5 times pressure. Okay, and then when you get into the house, the 4 things that you're going to worry about is, okay, it meets code, 54 code, or anything. Okay means it meets code. NV means it's not visible. Let's say you go out and there's a outdoor grill that they bricked around real nice and everything else, but you can't see any appliance information on it, then you write NV because you can't find that information, okay? Now, let's say if it's got manual shut off within 6 feet, but it's a dryer. A dryer does not have to have a sediment trap because you push the button, it's on a timer, it's not on the thermostat. So it doesn't have to have a sediment trap. If it doesn't have to according to code, it's not applicable. And then if there's anything that you see wrong, it's always CA for corrective action. And when you're recording your information, try to use shorthand. It's like when you go to the restaurant and order a prime rib and everything else, they don't write out full prime rib, medium, and everything else. They write PR, da, da, da. Okay, same thing for you. Copper tubing, CT. Poly or plastic is going to be polyethylene, PE. Black pipe or any type of metal pipe that you're going to have is going to be PP and CSST. Now, we'll tell you about CSST. If you haven't specifically installed CSST, here's what you got to worry about. There's 2 different colors. There's black and there's yellow. Okay, yellow is the older CSST, and anytime that it comes inside the house, once it passes that initial foundation wall, it has to have a ground wire running from it to the circuit panel, to the ground up there. It has to be installed by an electrician. But if it's black, you're not going to see that. It can be grounded anywhere along the whole length of that house, going back to the circuit panel. And if you do see CSST in a house, always check unknown. That way, you're not qualified for it, you're not going to be held accountable for it, you've just documented CSST and it's not your responsibility. It's whoever installed it. Okay, due to the warn, make sure that you got their name printed on there. Always have them print their name and sign it, and you always sign last, because if you don't get their signature, every bit of work that you've done is not worth anything. It's not worth it in a court of law. Okay, here's the checklist. Just says, hey, I've reviewed this with you, and you know where your shut-off's at. You know what this smells like. We've done your sniff test. Signature, signature. And then make sure that they've actually got the brochures to give to them. Okay. For a brand new customer, I always recommend the big booklet. Okay, to give them all the information that they need. For anybody else, existing customers that's out of gas, I always give them just the trifold brochure. Now, some companies have started giving the carbon monoxide brochures. Y'all haven't yet, so it's not an issue, so you just have the one brochure to give them. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you real quick. Let me get to this here just a second.
So you say anybody can sign off on a leak check at the house after we do one, whether it's a homeowner or not?
Homeowner, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
18 years of age or older, that's the only requirement.
Okay, so what if it's a contractor that they're building this house?
Yeah, if the contractor's building and there's a
He
subcontractor,
can sign that.
he can sign it.
All right, now what about the duty to warn?
Same thing, once he signs that,
So he can sign a duty to warn for someone else's house?
yeah, because the house hasn't been turned over to somebody yet.
Okay.
What about the neighbor?
Yeah, what about the neighbor comes over?
If there's somebody over there that's an authorized representative, you just ask them, well, I'm over here because she called me because I wasn't gonna be here, I'm here to sign.
So on the duty to warn, just put neighbor.
Yeah, just check on there, that authorized representative, let them put their name, let them put their signature.
Okay.
All right. And let me get my,
Just put dad's name on there. Or sign for it.
Hey, how was the sandwich there, Pops?
Good, it's gone.
I ate mine too. That's the most I've eaten for lunch in a long time. It was good.
It's nap time now.
Yeah, I know my eyes are getting heavy. After eating all that sandwich. Belly getting big again.
One sandwich in the gym.
Look at that thing. Bro. It's trying.
Keep it away.
You guys are terrible.
let me find this real quick and I'll show you what these look like.
Just reeling your hose up by hand today, huh, Briggs?
Yep.
Thought they got fixed yesterday.
Master
Yeah.
mechanic didn't get it, huh?
It's not recording.
Does he ever fix anything first
It's
time?
on recording. She's recording it all.
I don't care. Yeah, I pulled a muscle in my shoulder too.
Oh, I guess you gotta take tomorrow off.
God, I'm telling you what, it's killing me right now.
That one's not easy to roll, none of them are easy to do by hand, but that
Yeah,
one's
try
way
to-
up in there.
I do it 90 feet out.
That's why you're so stout.
Yeah, that's why I'm broken.
That's why we put the young guy on that truck.
Yeah.
Well, Fetty had the hand crank on 7 and Abby took it off completely, so you couldn't even use that. I guess there's some kind of hand.
Yeah, there's a handle for it. It's been in the side box.
Yeah, well, Abby.
Is there one for 6?
No.
I didn't think so.
The nose rail was made after hand cranks were an option. You're not supposed to.
I was so ticked off I could have choked him this morning.
That's everything.
Like, you gotta be kidding me. Well, yesterday I pulled in the shop, he comes back out 2 minutes later, he goes, there's nothing wrong with that hose reel. He walks out there, pulls like 4 feet off of it, hits the button and rolls back up.
Okay, this is what the 2-pound PSI system looks like.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
What is it? Oh,
The-
the
I
Rigo?
believe it.
Yeah.
Ours is gonna find somebody
Yeah.
for you to install.
The only difference is you're always gonna have,
Unless you have to.
used to, you could always guarantee by colors. You know, red was always gonna be first stage, green was always gonna be second stage, black was gonna be this, this, and this. Well, they did away with the colors, but you still have to have this for second stage
So
regulator.
that's the one on the outside of the house.
Yep.
So what's the ones look like that go inside then?
Inside the house is this.
And even though they have a vent in them also? The ones inside the house?
That's what a Maxtro looks like right there. This one right here.
Okay, one was in the hot water tank.
You do?
So there's no vents on
No,
those?
that's just a
That
regular.
has a little relief valve with a cap on top of it right there.
And that's code to be inside of a house,
That is-
that vents off?
That is code to be inside the house. Now, that has to be an upright position like that. That has to be pointing
I
up
see.
like this, flat.
Okay.
okay? And it's usually installed within 1 foot. It's usually installed right after the manual shut off. Piping for there, because you got the manual shut off, so if you have to do any repairs to that or to the appliance, that you can do it. But that drops it down from 2 PSI from that blue regulator from the outside. It drops down from 2 PSI to 11 inches worth of water column for each of those appliances. But you have to have one of those on each appliance when you do that system in the house.
Try it on.
Mhm.
Now that he's talked about it, we'll have 20 we got on this week.
I never had messed with that one time. I mean, it's always decent. I mean, everybody that had stuff, I've never had.
So
this
far,
one.
everything's worked.
Most of the
Yeah.
times, well, for you up here, it's different because you never know how many appliances is gonna be. So when people size things up here, you just naturally size larger.
Right.
Okay.
Cover you if you want to grow.
Yeah, well, in a lot of situations, particularly you get south of the Ohio River or get out west and everything, they weren't necessarily ready for all this stuff. So they sized it according to what they actually had plus 10%.
So we got 3
So if
in
you
our
had-
house or what?
Yeah, I mean, if you ran, 140 to 250,000 BTUs in the house, you didn't need anything more than 3/8,
Right.
okay? So, because they'd supplied the 10% above or everything else like
95%
that.
of the people up here have 3/4 usually in the houses.
3/4 would be so overkill for us, it would be like, but for you, that's a norm for you, because everything's